A 1, a 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can be serious or silly when you paint with Robin and Lily. Mama's a teacher, I just write songs. Come and join along.
Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Lily.
We are Robin and Lily.
For the love of painting.
It's Christmas time! Yes, and today we're going to paint beautiful Christmas bulbs. And I'm excited because this image is going to allow us to really play with the watercolor paint. Let that paint sort of move and blend like it does. It's the medium that allows you a lot of freedom, and it kind of dances around the page.
We do have a subscription to a paint kit that matches what we're doing today. If you have your own supplies, you're welcome to use your own supplies at home as well. Stay tuned to the end of the video though for details about the paint kit subscriptions.
Yeah, so what we have here is a piece of watercolor paper that has starter lines. If you get a kit, you'll have both a blank piece of watercolor paper and one like ours with some starter lines. That way, if you're not as confident, you've got a place to start. We're going to draw right along with you. We're going to start by drawing our bulb. If you don't have our kit and you're working from a fresh piece of paper, you might want to find something, a glass, some sort of a round disc that is going to be just about the right size to really fill up that piece of paper that you're using. Remember, you always want to draw large. We wouldn't want a small little bulb in the middle of the page when we could really use that paper and draw larger and paint larger. It makes for a more exciting image when things are big. So find what you need to make your circle. That will become our sphere.
And let's begin.
Yep. So we already have our circle as a starting line, and this straight line is actually the top of our little disc that sits on the top of our bulb. So we want to draw the sides coming down to the bulb. And this line underneath curves a tiny bit because again we're working in things that are round. So make sure, almost like a faint smile, you have a slight curve on the line at the bottom of your disc. Okay. On top of that, we have our little metal loop. So you can draw that as a single line that curves, or you can make a double line so it has that three-dimensional quality, like it's actually a little piece of wire. I'm going to draw a double line on mine. Like that. Okay. Awesome. And you can see on our example, we have lines that swoop in. Even some go behind the bulb. Those are going to be branches, ends of branches from the tree. But so I want you to think about that when you think about where your little metal hook is going to fall. So I'm going to draw my hook first. From my loop, I'm going straight up and then curve to make that hook. And then that first branch, we want it to fall right inside that hook. So we're just going to draw, I'm going to start about here, draw right under that hook and right off the page with a little swoop or curve. Oh, I like what you did. Lily's is a little more whimsical, which fits her personality. And look how straight and stiff mine is. Okay. I'll be more whimsical with the next one.
Mama really loves abstract painting and free fluid expression with big strokes and especially oil painting. But she has a fine arts education that sometimes keeps her,
I have to really fight it.
Yeah,
I have to fight to
get
get that loose quality that I desire. I have to work hard at it.
She is talented at portraying exactly what something looks like, and that is amazing. I'm not at all. I don't have that talent.
Well, you have the whimsical quality that comes naturally, and see, that's how we're different, because that part of your artistic expression really is natural. It's whimsical and colorful and loose, and I fight for that whimsical, loose quality. but I'm fighting for it. Okay, so our next branch, this one, you can do your branches any way you want. You can have as many branches as you want. Feel free to be expressive and create your own drawing and your own painting. Some of my branches are going to fall right behind the bulb. And that's another thing we're learning as we draw, is about depth and depth of field. So often when we're drawing, things fall behind other things in our image. So a couple of my branches are going to fall behind my bulb. And I'm going to have one, this one's going to go behind the bulb and come back out on the other side. So again, another quality of 3-dimension in my drawing. And there's my whimsical. Wait, here's real whimsical. All right, we got it. Okay, so if you're drawing with us, take your time, complete your drawing. Remember, one of the great things about video lessons is that you can pause, rewind, rewatch,
Take your
practice.
time.
Yeah, so take advantage of the fact that these are video lessons. I think we're ready to start painting.
All right, here we go.
We have Christmas colors, red and green, and 2 different kinds of blue. This is cobalt blue, sort of a light, tiny bit lighter one is a cobalt blue, and this is ultramarine blue. And they really are different when you put them on the paper. They look similar here, but you'll find that when we paint with them, they're really different colors of blue. So let's start with the fun part. So we're gonna fill in that circle with just color that dances and flows. We're gonna paint today wet on wet. So first thing we do, get a clean brush and clean water, and you're gonna paint the entire bulb just plain water, no color at all. When I first learned to do this, I did think this was the oddest thing to do, to literally take time to paint with just water, but it allows you to create that beautiful wet on wet effect that is really an important part of watercolor painting. Another thing about wet on wet is when I make these crisp lines where that wet is painted right up to my drawn line, when I add color to that, it will stop. When it hits that dry paper, it stops. And that's an amazing level of control, actually, when you're playing and you're letting colors bleed, and yet you can say and know when that water's going to stop moving. So, that's a fun part. Remember, we always think about our light source. Our light source creates our shadows and our highlights, or places where the light is reflecting, especially on a sphere. So, we both have our painted spheres. We're going to let those sit for just a second. They'll stay wet, but the water will begin to absorb into the paper a little bit. What I want to say about the sphere is that as the sphere comes forward in the same way, you've got that rounded object that's going to reflect light. So if our light source is, for us, up to the right, then up in this right corner is where the color would be the lightest. Sometimes even that white paper, we're going to let that show through. With watercolor, you don't really have an opaque or solid white, so we use our paper. Oftentimes our white paper becomes the white color in our painting, which we will do today, as that will be the reflection. Okay, the fun part is going to be really taking all 3 of these colors, the red and the 2 different blues, and we're going to start painting around the edge. If your paper is dry at the moment where we left it wet, because I've talked a lot, you can add a little more water or just smooth it, like blend it around, so that you do want, before we start painting, you do want your sphere to be completely wet. I'm going to move, mine's kind of gathered a little bit at the top. I'm going to move it around so that my sphere is completely wet. Then we're going to start painting along the edges of that circle, which are really the shadows of the sphere. You can choose any color you want. I'm going to start with my ultramarine blue, sort of the darker blue.
You said we're starting around the edge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to start really Because it's wet on wet, the paint's really going to move around. It's going to swirl and move through the water and blend in with the paper. So I'm going to start on this outer edge, and then I'm just going to let it sort of do its thing. This is the fun part right here. You can paint with your brush right into the water, or you can drop color. Just drops of color. You get that even wetter. So it drips better, of course, when there's more water, but if you drop into the wet, it will make a pattern and it will begin to spread out. That's what I call the dancing or the playful parts of the color. I only really painted so far close to the edge. Yeah, beautiful. Just going to choose another color. Now, as we paint wet on wet, our reds and our blues will blend together, and they make a beautiful violet, two different kinds of purple, really, with the cobalt and the ultramarine. This is actually called alizarin crimson, this red, which is a beautiful name and a beautiful color.
She will always astound me with her knowledge of specific names of colors.
Like magenta, just that magenta was always my favorite. I remember being teased because I called the light on the Christmas tree lights. Can they see that? I don't think they can see our lights. I always referred to the pinkish light as magenta, and it is. Yeah, it is. Where my red bleeds into my ultramarine, you can see it starts to make a purple color. Really beautiful. And then as I pull my blue across into the red, that really makes a shadow. Be conscious of that darkest edge. It will give the illusion of a sphere, of a moving around into the shadow. So be sure and work on those dark edges. Yeah, I'm going to go into my cobalt blue. A little different kind of blue. And let's go ahead and decide that we're going to leave up in sort of the upper right hand area a little bit of white. You can even take a towel or a paper towel and blot in some of my red already sort of bled into this area that I want to be white. So I'm going to take my cloth and I'm going to dab it to make sure there's really no color right here in this area. I'm going to go around where I'm going to leave this white that's going to be a bit of a reflection on my sphere. You can leave white in other areas. White is always a good addition to watercolor. It just gives texture and reflection. I'm going to drop some of mine and just let it drop, and then you let it bleed. I'm not going to touch it or move it around, just for fun. Drop some water on there. Just see what that does. One of the hard parts really about watercolor is stopping when you need to stop so that you can let the colors do their thing. It's easy to keep working and working and kind of work into it a little too much. But actually yours looks awesome, Lily. I like yours better than mine.
Why?
I don't know.
Don't. It's not about better. It's about unique, individual.
Yes. Ooh, see, I really like, I guess that's the ultramarine with the alizarin crimson. It's just a beautiful, soft violet. I like it. Okay, so we're ready to paint our greenery, the ends of those tree branches that touch our bulb and sometimes go behind our bulb. And to do that, I'm going to turn mine a little bit so that when I'm painting these lines, I'm pulling toward my body. For me, that feels most comfortable, and I feel like I have the most control. Of course, you can do that in any direction that you want, but I'm turning mine so that I can paint my lines by pulling toward me. Now, we're going to use green, but then we're also going to add some blue. We're going to add some ultramarine blue because that'll add depth and a cool darkness to our greenery. But we're going to start with our green, so let's get some water. Actually, I'm going to get some clean water and wet my green paint and then load my brush.
What a pretty green.
It's very much a Christmassy green, don't you think? Now, you do want to sort of turn your brush so that you're getting a point. When you want to paint lines, you want a little bit of a point. It's not going to come to a fine point, but you do want a little bit of a point. And then I'm going to start with this top one, and just with a smooth, comfortable flow, you're just going to draw that line. Put your brush down and draw that line right towards the, I didn't even stay on my pencil, but that's okay because we're going to totally cover that up. Actually, that's serendipity again right there, a little happy accident. So maybe I would have wanted to stay on that pencil line, but really it's not going to matter. We're going to add enough color that you're not going to notice that. So I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to draw towards myself. Okay. And then as you get to the end, you can pull up on your brush or lighten up on the touch, and it sort of feathers the end of your painted line. So that's awesome. Okay, so we'll do that for each one of our branches. Now, when we come to where our branch touches the bulb, we may want to actually move the other direction and not pull towards ourselves because we want to start at the bulb and then move away. Okay? Either start at the bulb and move away, or turn it again. And kind of get a point on my brush. And put the brush down and pull again. And you can put layers of this green because ultimately we are wanting a depth of color, a richness of color. All right, so I'm just going to keep turning my paper as I need to. Now this line goes behind the bulb and comes out on the other side. So we're just going to pick up that same branch and pull and feather by lifting up on the brush. Awesome.
This time you're going faster than me. I might be a perfectionist sometimes.
No hurry. We can take our time. All right. Lots of little needles. I'm going to start each one of my branches up in this direction, what would be part of the tree or in the tree. And I'm going to pull all of my needles down toward me or down toward the end of the branch. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm always going to start up here at this end and pull, pull, pull. Lifting up on that stroke so it's feathering the end of that stroke each time. When you get to the bulb, don't worry if it goes in front of the bulb or touches the bulb, because those branches and those needles really would be touching the bulb. You know, it's kind of squished up in there and hanging from a branch. Okay, so as I'm painting, I'm noticing that the moisture on my brush is drying out a little bit. And even though we are painting wet on dry paper, when that happens, we call that dry brush. And it begins to show the texture of the paper through the stroke that I'm making. And you can see here, this is a really good example of dry brush right there, where you can see the texture. And that begins to happen when your brush is a little drier. So if your brush begins to dry out and you get that dry brush technique, you can use it. It creates good texture. It's going to feel like the needles of the tree branch. See, I really like yours are exploding. You know, they're going in different directions. And see, mine are really neat. And this is that we were talking about earlier, how I struggle to loosen up. I feel like I'm being so loose. I'm just stroking and stroking. And then I look over and yours is exploding with color. So we should love that part of how our paintings are all different and really an expression of who we are. So
very true. I'm definitely one to go in every direction at the same time.
This is a really great painting also for our viewers who are beginners. You've just got the simple bulb and then this texture that you really can't mess it up. You know, it's just a natural pattern, I guess. Do allow some of those branches to come over top. I really like what it looks like when it begins to. And these little splashes of green over the pink and the blue could be needles that are touching the bulb. They could also be reflections of needles on the surface of the bulb. We're having so much fun with this beautiful green, but don't forget we are going to add some ultramarine blue in just a minute, and that's going to add shadow and depth to what we've already painted. This is fun, actually. This is a lot of fun. Painting these feathery branches is just fun. So these could be Christmas cards. These could be little paintings
or just gifts,
decorations, gifts, Christmas gifts.
Go to the store. Are these standard size?
This is 5x7. These papers are 5x7.
All right, so go to the store, get yourself whatever 5x7 frame you like. Be a perfect Christmas gift.
Yes. Oh, and we should have painted our little cap probably before we added the, didn't even notice. Only because
I bet you noticed.
Yes. Yeah, someone out there is probably saying, what? So I got lucky. Most of my little branches aren't crossing over my cap, so it's not going to affect the color. I'm going to pause on my greenery, and I'm going to go back and paint the cap on my bowl. I'm going to use red, but you could use the light blue. You could even use the ultramarine blue. Any of those colors would be fine on that cap, but I'm going to use the red. Now, my cap is also round. It's not a sphere, but it does curve back. So in the same way, the darker parts or the shadowy parts are going to be on the edge where it's curving away from you. All right, so kind of darker on the two ends. Are you doing your cap too? Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, awesome. So your reflection is on the right, and I'm going to make mine on the right as well. Similar to this reflection here, which is kind of up and to the right, I'm going to leave some white there on my cap so that that reflection is also over on the right side. Sometimes I forget how fun this is. I love it. Oh, that's so pretty. And I'm glad I chose red because it seems more Christmassy. I didn't really think about that when I chose it. Yeah, for shadow, that's a good idea too. So on those sides, where it's darkest shadows curving around to the back side, I'm going to add a little blue too. I like that. It gives a little shadow effect.
Wet on wet just bleeds into a purple.
That's so pretty. Alright, I'm going to really be bold here. I love how bold this red is. And most of my red has faded out into the water before it dried. So I'm going to go back and add a little bit of this bold red down here at the bottom. And that creates balance. You really want to share colors around the page. So now that I have this bold red, if I dot it down here and maybe over here, that creates balance for your eye. I just feel like I need some of that. I like it. It does feel a little risky though. Oh no, this is already dry. What am I doing?
See, that kind of thing, that's how I paint. That's exactly how
Taking
I
all
paint.
the risks.
When I paint in my acrylic style, I don't plan. I don't even mix the actual paint on a palette before I put it on the canvas. I usually squirt it on big canvas, or really whatever size. I've done tiny ones or
Some
some
smaller ones. A lot of Lily's paintings are very large.
Yes, they are. It's just one layer after the other of just throwing it on there. However it looks is however it looks. Not a lot of cleaning.
I like what this did though. See how that brought that red down there? It gave it more depth, more curve, because there's more shadow, and it's balancing that red. I like it. Ooh, beautiful. Ooh, I really like how that tiny little piece of white stayed, and it just gives you that reflection. Like there's real light dancing off of that ornament.
Yeah, I like it.
It's beautiful. Okay, now we either need to let our ornament dry again, which is probably the best idea, or you can keep painting on your branches, but being really careful not to get into that wet part of your red paint again.
I think I'm ready to keep going.
Okay,
I'll be careful.
I'm going to keep going too.
If you feel like you need to stop and let it dry, go ahead and pause the video. That's the benefit of virtual learning.
That's right. Absolutely.
So you said blue? Are we adding
Yeah,
blue?
I think we're ready for blue. Now, so the deepest part of your green, or your blue-green, is going to be in the thickest part of your branch, and a lot of shadow in sort of the center part of your branch. Again, as you feather those branches out, that's going to be lighter. So I'm mostly going to paint my blue in the stroke that is the branch, and then in shorter, smaller little branches that kind of represent shadow in between and shadow up right into the branch, kind of like that. So just adding some blue for depth of color and shadow. And I'm going to encourage you to be messy a little bit with this. I'm struggling to be messy. I feel I'm being tight again. I'm going to try and loosen up. So if there's ever a place where you can really be loose, it's, you know, some greenery, right? Natural greenery. All right.
If you hear that, that's my brother singing outside the house.
He's outside singing and we can hear him. He knows we're filming.
P.S. Shout out to our family who has given us the house to allow us to record.
Yeah. You might hear dogs barking.
It's just life on the art farm.
Might hear chickens.
We live on 20 acres of Kentucky wilderness. It's woods and a pond, and it's beautiful, and it's our artistic haven.
We call it the art farm.
Home of Artburn Studios.
Oh, and I love the blues shining out. Again, that's balancing the blues from the bulb. So sometimes things happen and you don't even expect them. It's like suddenly I'm like, ooh, these blue parts of the branch are just gorgeous. Have to use your paint palette, Mom. We need to think about a way for our viewers to share with us the paintings that they're doing.
That's an excellent idea. Man, I'm a klutz, if you haven't noticed. This is why I paint messy. I just can't paint clean. There's no way to stay clean. We could absolutely do monthly posts of all of our subscribers' artwork on our social media pages.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So if you go follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and send us via message the art that you've done following along, we would absolutely take the opportunity to post your work on our platforms.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, actually. Oh, I'm happy. I like my blue. It's more blue than I expected to use.
Me too, and I don't mind it.
I like it.
I really like the blue. Because you'd be surprised how really from afar and when you put it all together, it doesn't even fully register as blue. It registers as shadow.
Oh, but see, mine does. I think mine is blue.
No, it totally does.
Yeah.
Look at the difference. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
you're right. So the blue that's mixing with the green is more of a deep shadow.
Mhm.
Mine's just blue. God. I
You like blue.
I do. I feel like it's reflecting the blue that's in the bulb and vice versa. That's more balanced. So always looking for balance in color and texture and shape. I'm also dropping in some water that allows some of those strokes and those needles to blend together, because it is reaching into what is the tree, not just individual branches. So I like that as well. Now I have to decide if I like the blue so much I want to leave all that blue showing, or if I want to go back with green. Another layer of green.
I was thinking about that too.
Oh wow, look. Again, yours is playful. Mine is like so controlled. I felt like I was not being controlling. I'm like, oh look, I'm stroking this and I'm loose.
Exactly, that is very loose, Mom.
It is not. It is just tight. I mean, it's pretty.
It is.
But I don't feel like it's really loose. It's not exploding in different directions with color. It's just these fine little Christmas tree needles. Very pretty though. So I am going to add a little more green.
Yeah, me too.
Have you been painting mostly pulling toward you?
Yeah, for the most part, but I actually think that part of why my branches look like they're exploding is because I'm not always.
Yeah, you are painting in different
I'm
directions.
painting in different directions, and when I push my brush up instead of pulling it towards me, it is way less controlled. I have no idea where the brush is going to go.
Right.
And I don't care.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you been using any dry brush technique?
It came through
A little
at one
bit,
point
yeah.
under there, but I think I've covered most of it up, to be honest.
Alright, I'm almost finished. Now, deciding when you're finished can be difficult sometimes. And you always want to decide a little caution not to overdo it. So if you're feeling like you're just about finished, you might want to go ahead and stop.
I have very rough edges, so I'm going to end by cleaning those up a little bit around my
Oh, the edge of your sphere. Okay, that makes sense because it is a sphere, it's a smooth, shiny object, and if your paint was bleeding out a little bit, it won't look as crisp, so that's good. Oh, I'm liking it very much. I didn't paint my little loop. I guess I will.
Yeah, we should. We should.
I'll paint my little loop. And the thinnest of lines for my... Really, you don't have to paint the hook.
Yeah, no, really, it's
It
fine.
looks like a tiny piece of metal wrapping around the branch. I think I am going to paint mine, but you don't have to. There we go. Love it. Beautifully done, my dear.
Ditto, Mama. So to end, I want to thank everyone who has participated. And honestly, the way we're offering our subscriptions, in that you don't have to actually subscribe to get yourself a paint kit. You could get just one individual kit as well. You could do these out of order. So if you started with this video, thank you for joining us. We have many more to come. If you are interested in purchasing a paint kit subscription, again, visit artbarnstudios.com and we can get you all settled there. They're going to come with your individual paint color palette. She has hand selected every single color for each one of these unique illustrations that she also designed as well. I don't know if we've mentioned that. And then in that you'll also have 2 pieces of watercolor paper, a Da Vinci watercolor paintbrush, all for yourself, a drawing pencil, and a step-by-step illustrated how-to guide going over what we went over in the video. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you very soon next month. And what will we be doing next month?
It's a winter scene with a red cardinal and snow.
Wonderful.
It's going to be beautiful.
Well, we'll see you there. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.